good. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday live stream, which is the NFA Live. I've got, as ever, Guy from Coin Bureau. Guy, how you doing today in that nice sweater that you got going on?
Thanks, Rob. Yes, I'm feeling much better ever since I put it on. It's lifted my mood a great deal, which is more than can be said for the state of crypto at the moment. So yeah, desperate times call for desperate measures.
That looks great. And then, of course, Ben, you're looking a little tired, my man. You doing okay? How's things going?
Too many late nights arguing with Twitter trolls.
Dude, I'm telling you, they're gonna suck you in. But
it's an addiction.
Well, we need a voice of reason, right? And I'm glad that we're here today because that's what we're going to talk about. First of all, everybody, to get this out of the way, this beautiful thumbnail that you can see right before you is AI generated, first and foremost. And I gave everybody an opinion on what they wanted. Did you want this thumbnail or did you want this thumbnail? I am just the representative of your wishes and desires, and that is the thumbnail that I put. Never blame Guy and Ben for a crazy thumbnail that I did, and that's what we're going with today. But as a reminder, you know, a lot of people said, hey, we like this one, and they want a little brevity, so we brought it to you. And then, you know, this is, as far as Supercycle goes, I don't think we've hit it yet. I don't think it never happened. I don't really think it's going to happen. That's just my personal opinion. And as a reminder, last week we did talk about the, well, actually not last week, 3 weeks ago, about the relief rally. And it was a relief rally. It wasn't the next coming of the big, huge run-up that everybody thought it was. Anyhow, let's get to today's show, shall we? So the first question I have for this is this. 2026, the year that we're in right now, it feels like some things are repeating and the narrative seems to be gaining ground after everyone was told there's going to be a banana super cycle happening, which didn't really happen. So even though we've got a lot of things that are kind of the same things again, as far as like 4-year cycles, and should we just take a look at these 200-week moving averages, 250-week moving averages, 300-week moving averages, or is there something that I'm not seeing? Because it seems like as we get farther into this cycle, it seems like it's like everybody's kind of turning into that, like, okay, it's just a 4-year thing and everything's going to crash and we have to go down. But maybe I'm wrong. Guy, can we start with you? Let Ben catch his thoughts and maybe feel a little better.
Sure.
All right.
Sure. I mean, yeah. As far as moving averages go and the chart related stuff, I'm going to leave that entirely to Ben because he's probably forgotten more about that sort of stuff than I'll ever know. So, I mean, I guess what I want to, the question I'm asking is how much of this is, you know, what we're seeing at the moment? How much of this is 4-year cycle dynamics playing out? And how much of this is just, you know, the fact that we're being screwed over by the news, by, you know, what's kind of going on in the wider markets and the wider world. Because you know, it seems to me that we're just stuck now in this situation where, you know, you might see a rise in global liquidity. You might see the dollar weaken, although it's now starting to strengthen again. You might see the dollar weaken, but, you know, crypto doesn't catch a break. You might see other asset classes rip. Crypto doesn't catch a break. So, you know, and what with everything, you know, what with all the questions now? We've been fielding the same question for months on end, haven't we? Is the 4-year cycle broken? Are we in an extended cycle? You know, these same sort of things around the cycle. And like I say, Ben is better qualified to speak on those sorts of dynamics than I am. But yeah, I wonder how much of this is really the cycle and how much of this is just there's a problem. You know, there are problems well beyond cycle dynamics. And I guess that, you know, the thing that really troubles me is that if you're looking at crypto as an asset class now, like obviously everything is kind of suffering, and we can go into why that is. But we've talked about it before. There are geopolitical concerns. There's a lot of uncertainty. AI and metals have been kind of eating up mindshare. Blah 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 blah. But I was trying to think earlier, like what would be the best possible news for crypto right now? What would we, what sort of news do we think would really kind of lift the markets? And whatever that might be, like, whether that was something related to regulation or liquidity or Trump or geopolitics or whatever it is, I just don't personally see what could could cause crypto to pump when ahead of everything else, ahead of metals having ahead of gold and silver having another run, ahead of other metals, ahead of other commodities or stocks or whatever it is. So those are my concerns.
Yeah, well said. I mean, everybody's got these concerns. So, and let's see if we can get out of this one. Ben, what's your thoughts on this one? I'm sure you've got some insights, especially from the macro perfectionist that you've been arguing with on X lately.
All right, I showed my screen.
Oh, here we go. All right.
Yeah. What else am I to do, Rob?
Here we go, everybody.
What else am I to do?
This is good.
Look, ROI from the lows, we peaked when we always peak, right? I mean, this is within about 2 weeks, the top was in from all the other peaks. And it just kind of looks like we're in a bear market, right? I mean, sometimes like the easiest thing is just it's just like the most obvious, because we don't have to overcomplicate it. We don't have to, pine over the Clarity Act. It's just that, look, it's a bear market. And I think we actually talked about, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we even talked about this back in Q4. We were talking about what would be a good narrative for the counter trend rally that would likely result in a lower high. And I think we specifically said, what if the Clarity Act doesn't go through as planned? And then that's the narrative that ends up getting blamed. And I've seen that narrative now kind of propagate around, like people somewhat uncertain about it. It's because, like, going into the, a few months ago, it seemed like a sure thing.
Right.
So when you measure from the top, it certainly looks like we're in a bear market. If you take the 2019 approach, which there's a reason to, as I've said before, if you look at the social interest and you overlay Bitcoin with the social interest, it looks like we topped on apathy rather than euphoria, which looks a lot more like 2019 than 2021 and 2017. And the main difference is back then, when you top on apathy, you don't have a rotation into altcoins like when you top on euphoria. So if you compare this bear market to the 2019 bear market, it looks something like this, right? Which also looks kind of like a bear market, right? I mean, it looks like a bear market. And then, so we've covered it from the low. We've covered it in terms of QT. You can also look at it as measured from the peak and see that it's generally tracking other bear markets. You can look at days since Bitcoin had a 50% drop. The last time it was this extended was actually in February of 2018. And then it reset after Bitcoin had its 50% drop from the highs in early February of 2018. So you look at year-to-date ROI. This is 2026. Now average out the ROI from all prior midterm years. We're tracking it perfectly, right? And this is the thing, is that, like, there's a lot of midterm years. Like, look at 2026 compared to 2014. There's a lot of midterm years where we have a good start to the year, and then it just starts to fall. And then we do eventually get a bounce, but it's still just a bounce to a lower high. So I think it's difficult because, we're essentially doing what we always do. It just feels different because it's like the top kind of came and went, and there wasn't really a lot of euphoria. And so I think it's harder this time for a lot of people because, I mean, one of the crazy truths right now is that most altcoins have completely round tripped all their gains from the bull market, right? Like, if you look at a lot of them, they're actually at their 2022, 2023 lows. So, it's been a rough cycle for everyone. I would honestly, like, I want to say this, but I wish we could just like skip to the end of the year. But when I was a kid, I always used to say that as a kid. I'd be like, oh, I wish it would just be summer. I wish it would just be, you know, fall. And then my mom would always say, don't wish your life away. So as much as I want to say, I wish it could just be the end of the year. You know, I think it's important to recognize that these phases of the cycle will happen, and they actually lead to opportunities, right? If you stick around, they lead to pretty great opportunities. I mean, think about it. The people who made a lot of money in 2024 and 2025 are the people that didn't leave in 2022. They're the guys the people stuck around, and then they ended up buying in, and then they ended up making a lot of money in the bull market. So it's tough. It's a tough year. But hopefully we'll have better times in the future.
Yeah, well said. Both of you guys, well said. Don't waste your life away. That is the truth right now. And I know that people say, I hate these bear markets. It's the worst thing of all time. It's not the worst thing of all time. This is when all the money and all the gains are actually being made. But the question is, and I'm just going to do a quick follow-up for both of you. So what are we looking at here as far as like any indicators? I know we talk about moving averages. I was taking a look at the different ones, and I never really got into the TA thing. I just never got into it until I had actually Ivan on Tech on the channel, and he was just saying like, look, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. 200-week moving average, as it goes down there, now all the TA people think this is a great time to buy because it's cheap. Other people think it's not buy, it's too much or it's too low, and they just stay out of it. But the smart ones buy below 200-week moving average. So is that one of the indicators you guys are looking at, or is it just sentiment, or is it just a whole bunch of things? Anybody can take that one.
I can give you a couple of examples of what I would look for. So here's an interesting chart. This is the Bitcoin percentage. I'm just trying to give you different charts, not just go through the same ones. Bitcoin percentage of supply and profit and loss. Historically, the lows occur after these two things cross, right? So basically, once you have more Bitcoin sitting in loss than profit, that's kind of when you start thinking about, all right, like maybe the bear market's over. You can see that's kind of been true every single cycle, and it was also true during the pandemic as well. They crossed. So that's one of the things I'm looking for. There's a couple other things as well. One of the things I think I would really like to see, because I actually do think this is more like the 2019 downturn than some of the ones we saw other times. One of the things that really marked the end of the 2019 downturn was the advanced decline index of the top 100 cryptocurrencies bottomed out and started going up. And even though price went lower in the pandemic crash, we got a divergence, right? So you know how we talked about social interest for a long time?
I do.
Social risk. What I would like to see is a scenario where the price of Bitcoin puts in a lower low and social interest puts in a higher low. And that would be somewhat telling that, you know, the trend is perhaps starting to change. And the social interest also looks a lot like the advanced decline index of the top 100 cryptocurrencies, because the reality is the social interest goes up when altcoins go up. If Bitcoin goes up, social interest oftentimes doesn't really move that much because most people are invested in altcoins. More people are invested in altcoins, I think, than Bitcoin, unfortunately. But I would like to see this chart going up, because then it would start to show that maybe the asset class is sufficiently cleansed of all the garbage that it needs to be cleansed of before we can have, you know, a more productive bull market. A lot of people say I'm just such a pessimist, but I put out a tweet about this the other day. Like, I'm not a pessimist about crypto. I'm actually optimistic that all the garbage will go to zero so that the rest can survive. And I mean, the reality is the entire asset class is always going to be treated like a joke if everyone just focuses on meme coins and garbage, and developers are never going to want to develop in the space if that's all that's ever rewarded. So those are a couple of charts I would look at. I think there was one more. Like, there's one chart. I'm not really sure if I haven't convinced myself if this is one that I truly believe in yet. But if you go look at this chart, it has the terminal price, the realized price, and the balance price, right? So so if you see the terminal price, we didn't hit the terminal price, okay? But guess what? We also did not hit it in 2019 either. And that's where I think we are. It was just kind of a slow bleed back down. And then we did have a capitulation down. Now, obviously, I'm not calling for a pandemic style crash, but that doesn't mean that you can't just slowly drop back below the realized price, which we are getting closer to. So, I could see a scenario where sometime later this year, the supply and profit and loss, they've crossed each other. Perhaps we've gone below the balance price. Perhaps the advanced decline index of the top 100 cryptocurrencies is trending up. Perhaps the social interest has finally bottomed and is starting to trend back up. Those are all things, apart from the charts that I already shared, those are all things that I would be looking at.
So a multi-part focus to take a look at different things to kind of validate what the assumptions are. Makes sense. Guy, anything to add on that one? It was pretty good. I got to go back and watch that one.
Yeah. Not much to add. No, I mean, it is. Yeah, you need to be looking at a range of things. But I mean, I think that for me, the social indicators, the sentiment indicators are really key, because this is an asset class, I think, that more than any other thrives on attention. And
right.
We need that attention, and I try to base a lot of it on what I hear sort of outside of crypto. I was out for dinner with some friends yesterday, and all they could talk about was gold and silver. Now, obviously, that's a little bit, it's a little bit after the fact, but that sort of stuff is always really telling for me. Like what are normies, non-crypto people? What are they talking about? Are they asking me about Bitcoin? Are they, is it getting, is crypto, is Bitcoin, etc., getting kind of mentioned in the wider sphere? Because I think that's, humans are herd animals. So definitely be looking for, I don't know if there's a chart of sort of mentions in media mentions or things like that. I think that would be a really interesting one to see. How often does the word Bitcoin get mentioned in, media outlets or whatever over the course of a week? But yeah, certainly things around sentiment and just general attention would be something I would look very closely at.
Yeah, and the sentiment right now, it's like retail's gone. They don't want to be around. The next new hot thing is gold, silver, palladium, precious metals, and it's going down that route. And that's nothing you can do. Again, like I've said before, it all comes down to S&M, speculation and momentum, and we've lost both. So let's move on to the next piece, because that was thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate that one. The next one kind of piggybacks on the first question, which is this. Let's say your future self is a time traveler, right? And they travel back in time, and they come back, and they visit, Guy visits Guy, Ben visits Ben from 2030, and they tell you this. They go, hey, I'm from the future, and just so you know, I need you to either sell or buy everything. Do you think they would come back and tell you that, or what do you think is the likely probabilistic outcome for right now? Because we can't give financial advice on this channel. We can't tell people to sell or to buy. But if your future self came back and they took a look at where we're at right now, would they tell you, you know what, just keep holding on? Or would they tell you, maybe sell everything, or somewhere in the middle? Guy, this is all you.
Thanks, Rob. thanks for landing that hot potato in my lap.
Perfect.
I mean, I think it's important to say, like, let's assume that future Guy, what's left of him, does say you should sell something now, present Guy. Like, bear in mind, you don't necessarily need to sell everything.
True.
So I kind of feel that that future Guy would probably lean towards being like, look, if you need liquidity now, if you want stable coins, if you want to move into other asset classes, then probably sell some stuff now, because I personally believe probably the market as a whole is headed lower. But I'm fairly fortunate at the moment in that my circumstances don't need me to sell everything or very much. And that's the other really important part of it, for anyone else watching. It's like, personal circumstances are everything. If you have a looming credit event, if you have bills to pay, if you have stuff that needs doing, and you need money for it, then maybe it is a good idea to sell. But this idea of sell everything or not, I think is a bit misleading, because you don't have to sell everything. You could realize, you could realize some profits, you could de-risk to an extent, and still keep chips on the table, so to speak.
De-risk. I like that one. That's a good one. So Ben, same question for you. De-risk a little bit, keep going the same way, or maybe just do nothing?
I mean, I guess I already de-risked a lot last year, so I mean, I don't know. I mean, I still have some. I think I've always thought, the way I've always thought about this is that, like, as long as I de-risk sufficiently, you know, then my future self will always forgive me for just holding some, just in case I'm wrong about something, right? So like I think it's a bear market, and my portfolio reflects that. With that said, like, I still have a small portion of my Bitcoin stack that I had previously. And, you know, is there a chance that that just keeps going down for a while? Absolutely. But, you know, I feel like I've already de-risked sufficiently. My future self would also say this is not financial advice, of course.
To you, from you to you.
Yeah, I would say it's not financial advice. Yeah, no, I think they'd say enjoy your hair while you still have some. I think like, I mean, I think long term Bitcoin will go back up. I don't know. I mean, right now I think we're in a bear market, so I guess it depends on the timeline. I mean,
yeah,
you know, if this truly is a bear market and Bitcoin is going to continue to drop, then like, you know, if you sell in Q4 2025 and then buy it all back in Q4 2026, like I think that's not a bad way to go. That's my plan, you know. So I don't know. I mean, I guess my future self would be like, yeah, like you just make the decision, like just make the best decisions that you can, and don't go all in on one specific theory. But you know, if you have a strong reason to believe in a theory, I think it's best you lean into it. You know, that's how, I mean, diversification is good, but you know, some of the ways that people get wealthy are when they take a bet on something and then they really lean into it when they're right. You know, I mean, we've been talking about the bear market for, you know, the last 3 to 4 months or so, and I feel like it puts us in an easier position to kind of come back in, rather than like panicking over a super cycle not working out in the same way. Because the issue is that, like, if you wait until, say, like now or a few months, right? If you've waited until now and then you end up panic selling, what usually happens is then the market will then rally for a few weeks and it'll go to another lower high. It'll then draw you in, and then you'll buy back in only for it to then drop again. So usually, like, it's not usually a good idea to like panic sell when Bitcoin's dropping, because I mean, who hasn't done that here, right? Like, I've done it. I have a feeling everyone has done it at some point, and then, you know, I feel like every time I used to do it back in the old days, you know, 7, 8, 9 years ago, and like anytime I ever panic sold on a drop, I felt like I always ended up regretting it like a week or two later. And then I'm sure I made the mistake of like buying or selling a bottom and then buying the top of a counter trend rally only to then get wrecked again. Like, who hasn't done that before? So I don't make emotional decisions, you know. That's all I would say. Just try to make decisions when you know, like how a few weeks ago the price of Bitcoin was just going sideways for like 2 months.
Right.
That's when you make your decisions, right? Like, that's when if you didn't make the decision back in Q4, that was kind of the next best time when price is going sideways, because then you have a couple of months to weigh the bull case, to weigh the bear case, and then make your decision. If you panic, then, you know, you're not really weighing anything. You're panicking, and then you're hoping it goes lower and hoping, you know, that you just time something really, really well. So that's all I think I would say.
Yeah, that's pretty good. They're both of you. I mean, these are good things to think about, especially moving in, you know, to the next evolution of what's going to happen. I will just say this, that the people that I think have sold and have done that selling and have de-risked are the most calm people that you're going to meet these days. And then the ones that, like, they'll post or they'll do videos, or just the people that you talk to, you can kind of sense like, oh, you did what you were supposed to do, right? You bought low. You didn't time the top because that's pretty much impossible. You de-risked yourself. You took your profits and you rolled them into something else. Congratulations. That's pretty much the basics. And then I will say, you know, that's what everybody wants to do. And if I had to do this, if my future self came back, it would tell me, which was, okay, you should have sold a little bit more, and you know to do that a little bit better. But you did not too bad with getting the different real estate. But next time, dump those worthless altcoins because they're never coming back, and it's only these top 5 that are going to be awesome. Fill in the blank of what those are. So that would lead me to the last questions, which is because we had alluded to this about the people that in our different comments section, and I see that there's like a shift between people. Like this was from a couple of days ago, where someone says, "Hey, I'm out," and like Ben and Guy were talking about is as far as selling or panic selling. I sold everything after trying it out for a few years, went through the crash in 2020, been through it a few times, I'm done with this. And I just said, hey, I don't blame you. This isn't for everybody. It's not easy, that's for sure. So my question for you guys is this, and whoever wants to take it, can take it. What's the difference between, like, say, the people that are watching right now and the people like Muzzy who are just like, I'm out? What do you think it actually comes down to? And it's not just about like, diamond hands and hodling forever, but the people that can take it.
I think people run out of patience. I have a friend actually who bought crypto for the first time in 2020. I called him a few weeks ago, and he told me I don't really know how it worked out for him, but he told me that he was just kind of waiting for the next rally, and then he was just going to sell everything. This was actually like back in maybe like August or something.
Right.
So hopefully it worked out for him, but he was mostly in altcoins was the issue. It wasn't Bitcoin.
No.
But yeah, like he basically said that like he was gonna wait for a rally, sell everything, but that he was not coming back. And that was kind of the thing that stuck with me, was that like he wasn't planning on coming back ever. And I think, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter say like they've just spent the last like 6 years of their life like trying to make money in crypto, and it's 6 years later and they haven't made anything. And I think that's kind of been a sobering reality for people. If anything, I think this market has taught everyone that, you're better off with the blue chips than the penny stock type stuff. And if you don't do that, then you more than likely are going to get burned out, because the people that I see wanting to quit, I feel like are the people that kind of faded Bitcoin in favor of other things, and then those other things just never really picked back up. So maybe that's one of the big differences is like, because I feel like for people that held Bitcoin, it was a pretty good bull market. I mean, it doesn't feel like it now. Bitcoin went up 8x from the lows. I mean, imagine if the stock market had done that, right? Like the S&P 500 would be trading over like 20,000 or something if it went up 8x from the lows. So it doesn't feel like, it really didn't feel like a bear market for people that held Bitcoin, but if you held altcoins, it certainly felt like a bear market. So I think it really just sort of depends on what you hold, and that's kind of why it's made people feel like that. But I will say this, I don't say this lightly, I do think that with a lot of people finally starting to capitulate on a lot of these altcoins and whatnot, it does make me optimistic for the asset class in the future, and not just for Bitcoin. I think there were a lot of people that have bought altcoins and random cryptocurrencies for all the wrong reasons, and perhaps there is something better in the crypto asset class than just gambling meme coin casino. Like, I want to believe that there's something more valuable there. It doesn't really help my case. A lot of exchanges are moving towards prediction markets, but I do believe that a crypto offers something that will be, part of the future. And all I wanted was for all the garbage to go to zero. And I think if you've held garbage, then you're just burned out, and you want to be done, and you never want to come back. And if you haven't held garbage, you just want the garbage to go to zero, so that the few good things can come out of the asset class. It's kind of like the .com era, right? Like, only a few things survived, and now everyone uses them, right? Like, everyone uses, who doesn't use Amazon at some point, right? Like, I mean, everyone's using it at some point, and most people, maybe not everyone, But there's so many companies that came out of that that have made the world a better place. But back then, I mean, it sucked. It sucked. I think the same thing's going to be true of crypto. I think a few things will survive and everything else will just simply go to zero. And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, I mean, think about Amazon. Jeff Bezos started off with just selling books. And people are like, why the heck am I going to buy? I can go down to B. Dalton Bookseller and get that. And now I got to go through this thing. This makes no sense. And of course, it just kind of grew from that. It's the important thing about following that project that you believe in and see how it actually builds up. And this would be great. Now, guys, same question for you. And it's good because like we have different audiences. Like Ben's more towards like heavy Bitcoin metals. The heavy metal show was pretty good. That thumbnail was really good. And then you've got yours for a lot of.
You're the one who made that thumbnail for me.
I know.
You're responsible for all the controversial thumbnails.
I just do what the people want. I don't. They tell me what they want. I give them what they want. That's it. I'm just a vessel of the people. So guy, for you, because there's different audiences. You are Bitcoin heavy, and I do like the new channel, Coin Bureau Finance or Coin Finance. But what do you see in the comments, and what has kept the people around that are into, like, say, an altcoin that you do a video on, or are people just leaving en masse?
I mean, yeah, but certainly a lot of people. I've seen lots of comments in our comment section like that one that you highlighted earlier. And like Ben says, a lot of people are really burned out, and yeah, a lot of those people will have been in alts instead of Bitcoin, or maybe alts and Bitcoin. But look, I mean, I think it's a real old hackneyed cliche, isn't it, to say in it for the tech? But
sorry,
at the end of the day, this is technology. Crypto is technology, and there are people out there who are genuinely interested in it. And it, as Ben alluded to, it is a transformative technology. And at some point further down the line, there will be a handful of crypto protocols that are, very much embedded into the fabric of everyday life in the same way that the likes of Amazon are
True.
now. I don't doubt that, and even now, I don't doubt that. But yeah, there's a lot of rubbish as well, and that needs to be shaken out. But I think it is, and one of the things that really sucks about crypto in a way is that it's become so much about speculation. Because it is a genuinely interesting bit of technology, and all of us, and when we came to it, when I first heard about Bitcoin in 2013 or whenever it was, it was I wasn't expecting to ever make big money on it. I thought, oh well, it'd be interesting to see the value of this go up. It certainly could go up, but of course I didn't. I had no way of knowing what would happen, but it was genuinely interesting technology, and it still is. Like, that hasn't changed, even with all the adoption, and even with Wall Street coming for it and ETFs. It remains this transformative piece of technology. And a lot of altcoins, that it's similar technology to Bitcoin, but they're trying to do different things, and that technology manifests itself in different ways. But it is still essentially a tech. And so I think a lot of our audience, or certainly a lot of the people who have stuck around, are interested in it from more than just a speculative standpoint. Whether they're genuinely fascinated to see how it which ones become big, or they're just interested. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's just like, this is fascinating in the same way that some people find building model aircraft fascinating, or cats fascinating. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, I think it is possible in these really cynical times to still be just into something, to still be just interested in it and be like, this is cool. And I think that that's the vibe I get from a lot of our audience, a lot of Coin Bureau audience, or certainly the people who are stuck around. Some people, sure, are still in it for speculative reasons, and that's fine. They're not doing great at the moment, but it's great that they've stuck around. But I think a lot of our and of course, it goes without saying that, you know, the Coin Bureau audience is one of the smartest and most intelligent out there. You know, and also one of the sexiest, I should say, as well. So, you know, we've still we've got good people sticking around. But yeah, I think it, like I say, I think it is okay to be interested in something for what it is, or, you know, or for what it promises, rather than necessarily, am I going to make money out of this? And at times like this, that's worth remembering, I think.
Exactly right. And the last thing I'll say is like this: all these different projects that are out there, it's time to pony up and actually produce something. These promises made must be promises kept. And if you can't do it, you need to fade away, you need to die. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. And give way for the real projects.
Yeah, go ahead. 100%. If you're planning to launch a project with a token, and the token is for governance, then just piss off. You know, do you know what I mean? It's like, just don't bother. Just don't bother. Like, I understand that regulations and you know, and the SEC and what have you, like the environment for developers, especially in the US, but elsewhere as well, has not been optimal. And, you know, the Clarity Act hasn't passed. There is still regulatory uncertainty, and we haven't, the innovation exemption that the SEC, you know, that Paul Atkins is promising, hasn't materialized yet. But if you are, you know, if you're planning to launch a layer one with a coin attached that is only going to be for governance, then that suggests to me that you're not interested in bringing anything new to the table. You're just looking to max extract, like so many people have done in this industry over the last few years. And we just don't need those sort of people anymore. I would rather have, you know, in fact, I really hope that we are past the Cambrian explosion of projects. Like, you know, I'm sure there are still great crypto projects still to be conceived and invented. But I kind of want now to see the great dying off of all the rubbish, and a chance for those genuinely good ones that are left to gain, you know, to gain more attention and be able to grow into their niche and do what they are supposed to do. And that's how we get something positive out of this. Right.
And I'll just say, the last thing I'll say is this: is I believe that there's going to be some altcoins that are going to work and they're going to be life-changing, but there's most that will not. And that will lead me to the last question, and it'll be a quick one, and we'll get to the Q&A, which is this: now that we talked about all the different, you know, Bitcoin and altcoins and all that, where do you guys stand as far as, like, what do you want to do moving forward as far as your portfolio? Continue to de-risk? Are we looking at equities, precious metals, land, real estate, and crypto? Or is it, I'm going to go heavier into Bitcoin and or digital assets, especially as we're in this really big bear market and it's going to continue going down? And once we hit these levels, which we all talked about, I'm just going to go heavy into that. Is it going to be more of a basket of assets, or just you're going to go more heavy towards crypto? And anybody can take that one. Actually, Ben, if you can take that one, please.
For me, it's always a basket. I mean, I think, I mean, look, I know some people are like maxis and just put like everything into crypto, but for me, you know, 15 to 20% in a bull market is enough for me. In a bear market, it's obviously a lot less than that, right? I think that, you know, what I've done, what I was doing the last few months is obviously riding sort of the metals rally. I do think I think gold is better here than silver. I think, like, it's kind of like the lessons everyone learned from Bitcoin dominance, right? Like, is the same thing that's going to be applied over there right now for a little bit. Like, gold will give you exposure to the upside in metals, if there is any, in the short term for the rest of this year. But it also won't drop as much as other things if gold starts to drop, right? Like, if gold drops more, if it goes, say, back down to 4,000, 4,200 or something like that, you know, other metals will have pretty sharp drops. So, I mean, I think it does make sense, you know, to have some exposure to things. I mean, I've also been pretty bullish on energy stocks, like defensive stocks for a while, manufacturing. That stuff's been doing pretty well. And but also too, I think one of the things to have that's been the most hated is just some cash, cold hard cash, you know?
Yeah, cash is king.
Honestly, I mean, in midterm years, when you're sort of referencing risk assets like crypto, and stocks, it is. I do think that international funds right now are probably going to continue to perform better than domestic funds in the United States. So like I've more so focused last few months, I've more so focused on increasing my positions in, you know, sort of these index funds that are more global or more regional, like Latin America, out in Asia. Like those have been doing really, really well. Those have been outperforming the US, and I think that trend is likely going to continue for a little bit longer. That's basically what I've been doing. And my goal would be to basically get my crypto portfolio percentage back up to about 15% or so. But not right now, right? Not right now. I'm not saying there won't be counter-trend rallies. In fact, bear markets are notorious for having the craziest rallies, you know, like because they're so aggressive, they draw people back in. So I'm not saying you can't try to trade it. I still have some of my crypto. I'm just saying like I would look to get a lot more exposure into crypto later this year. And as I've said before, like I'm going to start really looking for some good deals and stuff this summer. I think this summer could be a good time to really start looking and preparing how to think about getting in before the next bull market starts. But it's February of the midterm year. To me, it still seems a little bit early. I think we will have, a counter-trend rally at some point, but I think it will lead to a lower low. And I think on that lower low would be a really good time to start thinking, the bear market could be slowing down and maybe coming to an end. But I'm not really that confident that we're at that point yet.
Yeah, well said. Guys, same thing. Where are you at here for the portfolio? Want to stick it or you want to diversify or same thing?
Cash, I really like the sound of cash at the moment. It feels like a good place to be. Cash, stable coins, there are opportunities out there in DeFi and what have you to earn, decent yield, certainly way better yield than you would get from your bank on stable coin deposits. With the added advantage, you can keep it there. And like Ben says, look for opportunities further down the line. But the noise around kind of gold and silver is so loud. It's kind of drowning everything else out. But yeah, I'm interested in other metals like uranium, like we've talked about a lot. And I'm interested in staying with crypto in a way. I'm really interested in the kind of tokenized world of this. I really think we're going to see sort of more opportunities for getting exposure to assets like, copper's a good example. We've just made a video on copper. Really, really interesting case for it. And, but, as far as I can see, obviously copper exposure is relatively straightforward to get via your regular kind of, equities broker or whatever. But I'm kind of hoping that before too long we'll see tokenized versions of that on chain, and you can deploy stable coins into that. I think those are really interesting opportunities as well. But yeah, cash and stables are a big draw for me at the moment.
Yeah.
Hey, Rob.
What you got?
I sometimes I join like streams where there's only like 3 people watching, and they're like crypto streams.
Yeah.
I joined this one, and this guy was like, he was bullish on copper, and his way to express his bullishness, he was buying a meme coin that had the word copper in it. And I was like, okay. So I started writing him in the comments or in the live chat. And he just thought I was trolling him for a while. Some random guy. But I kept talking to him, and I was like, all right, like if you're bullish on copper, why not just buy copper? Why buy something that just has the name copper in it and then hope that it the only way we're going to break away from that is for people to like learn their lesson over and over and over again. And then they realize that like, just because you're bullish on copper does not mean every meme coin with the name copper in it is going to do well. But that type of thinking is what has become so pervasive in crypto, that like, oh, there's a hot topic, just make a meme coin with that name in it and it should go up. We have to change that mentality, in my opinion.
That mentality it's coming, and it's coming fast, because everybody who's in meme coins that I know of, except for the VCs that dumped on everybody, is all
You've muted yourself, Rob. Or was that deliberate? Were you just laying into the VCs on mute?
It was, and I don't want to say it, but sorry, my mic is dead because we've been talking so much. Let's go
Rob,
over.
Were you just giving your top 10 low cap gems, and now we're all stuck in disbelief as to what they were?
No, that's actually today's focus of the video. My top 10 low cap gems, and also a price prediction video coming out tomorrow. So I can be wrong with everybody else. Anyhow, let's.
Rob, I think you were the only one who was right, because you said you thought the price would be between $500 and $300,000, right?
I mean, I don't want to. But I hate to toot my own horn and say how correct I was.
Spot on as ever, Rob. Nailed it once again.
It's because you got to take that piece of humble pie and just don't tell people how right you were. Anyhow,
Guy and I will just be over here humbled in your presence.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, let's get the questions to get out of here. Good one. So Chessie says, we did not have, it's a good point. We didn't have a 20X or a 50X, same as before, diminishing returns. So why do we have to go to a 78 to 80% downfall? It's not the same. From the top of the 200-week moving average, now it's 50 to 55% drop, not 70 to 80%. Is there anything to be said about this, or is just like, hey, diminishing returns, that's just the game you get, that's the hand you got dealt?
I think there's some validity to it, honestly. If you exclude the pandemic from 2019, or from 2020, the Bitcoin dropped about 53% from the high. And about a 53% drop would get us around that 200-week moving average. So no, I think there is some validity to it. It's just a matter of how does the macro evolve later this year? Kind of what I've thought for a while is that we kind of work our way down to that 50% mark. And then from there, there's going to be some renewed interest, maybe like a little bit more than 50%. And then we'll have to wait and see if the macro can hold up for the rest of the year. And if it does, then maybe that is the bottom. And if it doesn't, perhaps we get one final drop into October. But yeah, I mean, there's a chance. That's why I said, when we get to those levels, you have to, it doesn't make sense to be as deterministically bearish, right? Because I feel like we've been pretty deterministically bearish for a few months now. But once you're down 50, 55% from the highs, yeah, you can always go down 70%. You can always go down 80%. But, it might not make as much sense to be as deterministically bearish at that point.
Welcome to crypto. Exactly. Guy, what you got?
Welcome to crypto, where gravity is as strong a force as everywhere else, if not stronger.
Very true. Very true. Last two ones. This is pretty good. There's talk of MicroStrategy and Saylor selling some Bitcoin. A little bit of Bitcoin being sold MicroStrategy, which the CEO came out, I want to say 3 or 4 weeks ago, and said, yes, there's a possibility we would sell Bitcoin in specific instances. But if MicroStrategy sells off, would that be the end of everything, or would it just be a small signal like, hey, we're in a bear market, but it'll be okay?
Well, not so long ago, I would have said it would be catastrophic. Not necessarily because of the selling itself, but because of the impact on morale and just the optics of it. Yeah. Now I'm not quite so sure. I think for one thing, sentiment and morale are already so low. I mean, it would definitely have an impact. It would definitely have a negative impact, whether it be catastrophic. I'm also sort of thinking, I kind of think, are people attaching the same importance to strategies buying now? They're still buying. They still seem to be the only buyer. But the price keeps dropping. So I do wonder whether people are whether the Saylor strategy meta has kind of gone a little quiet now. But I still wouldn't really be happy to see them selling.
That will make two of us. Ben, what you got for this one?
The only thing I really sometimes I wonder, the sobering reality is if Saylor had bought gold the entire time, he'd be up a lot.
I saw that post. It was pretty.
I did the calculations. I mean, it's true, but I think what I would say is there exists a world in 20 years where Bitcoin is at $1 million. I could see that being a thing in 20 years. I could see Bitcoin, at $1 million. That does not mean MicroStrategy still exists. or is a company that owns Bitcoin. If MicroStrategy exists in 20 years and is doing well, good chance it means Bitcoin survived. So when I think about, all these sort of like derivatives of Bitcoin or proxies to Bitcoin, I always think about it in terms of in everything else. Like everything in crypto eventually bleeds to Bitcoin. Altcoins bleed to Bitcoin. The Bitcoin miners bleed to Bitcoin. Why should treasury companies not eventually bleed to Bitcoin as well? I know, it sounds, and the issue is a lot of these guys, I'm not talking about Saylor, there's a lot of guys who, used to be really sort of toxic about, really toxic Bitcoin maxis, which maybe you could argue I've turned into one as well. But they would always say like, don't buy altcoins, right? Like they're scams. Because they dropped like 98%. But then a lot of these treasury companies have now dropped that much, it's just that they kind of, I think they don't mind as long as it was a way for them to get rich. And they figured out a way for them to get rich while still sort of pretending like they're sticking to their core ethos of like, stick with Bitcoin. But the reality is like, if you're going out and you're buying like levered products on Bitcoin, you are going to get wrecked at some point. It's just a matter of when. Things can go well for a while. I would say right now, my main concern at the moment isn't really Saylor. I'm not saying I think he still has some runway. My bigger concern is some of these other treasury companies, because there was one I saw the other day, their cost basis is like 107,000 or something, at least Saylor's is in the 70s. I also wonder too, I really wish we could look at like a parallel universe and see how things would be going. Like, what if Saylor only ever bought in like the midterm years and the pre-halving years, and then he just like didn't do anything for the other years? Like, I wonder what that would look like if he could spend less time, like just top blasting, and more time putting more money. Because if you look at the orange dots, there's not nearly as many in sort of the lows of the bear market as there are in the highs of the bull market. So I just wonder if that could be a sort of a better strategy, no pun intended, right? A better strategy to have some type of like rhyme or reason to it, rather than just buying the top. Because I know a lot of those guys sort of make fun of the 4-year cycle, but like this is now the second cycle in a row where it actually ended up being a thing. I wonder what it would look like if they exercise. And I think he finally is starting. Like a few weeks ago, I feel like he finally did start to exercise some restraint by raising some cash. And by the way, we were on this stream, I believe, on NFA Live. We were talking about that. I'm like, if the guy who tells you to sell your house to sell your house and buy Bitcoin, if that guy is raising cash right now rather than using it to buy Bitcoin, like, isn't the writing kind of on the wall as to what he thinks is about to happen? So
no. I mean, that's a lot to take in, and it's unfortunately true. For me, if you think about it, it was positive for the market that he would keep buying tops, because then people would feel like, okay, well, if Saylor's doing a MicroStrategy, we're doing good. However, like what Guy just said, which is, hey, if MicroStrategy starts selling, and the reason why they have to sell is because, as Ben said, top blasting. I never heard that. That's pretty good. So as he top blasts, then it raises his cost basis. I mean, he's not 107,000, but it would be nice for him to kind of lower it, and maybe that would be something and a nice little lesson for people to buy when prices are a little bit lower, and not so much when we're at all-time highs moving forward. Yeah. That's my take.
I mean, I think he's kind of painted himself into a corner, to some degree, because if he sells, the market would likely go down a lot. But I don't know. I mean, it's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah, I'm not in that. I don't own a $1 billion company, so I'm doing okay. The last question. You've got 10 grand, you got no assets, you have to deploy in the market before 2027. What are you buying? And are you just waiting for the 200-week moving average, or 250 or 300 or what? What do you guys want to do? And that'll be it, because we're kind of coming in low in time.
I mean, I already gave my answer earlier. I kind of went through everything, right?
That's true.
Yeah, so I don't really have anything else to add to that.
Guy, anything? Copper
and uranium.
It's pretty good. I got to watch that video that you guys just put out. Anyhow, everybody, that's it for today. We're coming up on the hour. So thanks everybody for stopping by. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. We are on Guy's channel next week. Hopefully that's when we hit that $300,000 Bitcoin like I called before. But that's it for today. Thanks so much, everybody. See you in the next one.
See you guys.